initial conversations were often about, all right, so there'd been a 28 days, there'd been a 28 weeks. It seems a bit stupid to do 28 months after this amount of time has passed from those films. So 28 years felt more appropriate. But then it was to do with imagining, what does 28 years mean? If the infection is still in Britain, what has happened to the country?
I think the biggest thing was imagining how a world would rebuild itself after an apocalypse. And the premise for this kind of film, where you have retreated to a safe space, protected by a causeway, and a causeway that you can defend when it is exposed by the tide, felt like a really great starting point.
Post-apocalyptic stories largely take place in cities because you see the decay of the houses, the decay of the buildings, and what Danny always wants is some kind of subversion. So this is just green and beautiful, and what you actually have is a community who in many ways are coping very well. There's nothing post-apocalyptic about it. So that's visual subversion.
The film opens on Holy Island. It's a famous island where, Christianity came to England. It's where the Vikings first attacked Britain. So it's a very famous place in British history, in the north of England, near Scotland, on the east coast.
Here we go! Everyone ready? Roll sound!
We wanted, obviously, Holy Island and the mainland to look very different. The island is a place that is touched by the human hand. We wanted lots of smoke. We wanted this idea of kind of agriculture and controlled nature, whereas when you got onto the mainland, it was this superabundance, this hyper-real, almost lurid green colours. So we found that kind of juxtaposition of those two things really important.
These films are set in the north of England, and we've been all over Yorkshire and Northumberland. It's afforded us these landscapes, these incredibly wild and varied landscapes. So it didn't take much to imagine how we could turn it into a land that hasn't been touched for 28 years.
The northeast of England, it's not used a lot for filming. It's Northumbria, it's quite a wild area, which suited our story because the country is naturally rewilding, so it suited our story. But it also gives you a source. It's quite close to Holy Island. It gives you the accent.
Oh, look, the angel.
Which is what people are listening to as a Geordie accent, a beautiful sing-song accent from the north.
You remember the first time you showed me the angel? You said it would stand like this forever. Like the pyramids or Stonehenge.
Danny talked to me early on about England, about the beauty of England, the rural beauty. It looks like something out of a romantic painting from the early 19th century. It's just breathtaking up here. And we've been lucky enough to build our Bone Temple in an extraordinary location in North Yorkshire, in a sort of cleft of meadows that are adjacent to a river, and across the river is a wood. And I think that's a factor of the film, is the proximity to nature.
Do you know the words memento mori?
No.
It means remember death.
We wanted to create something that felt rooted in the history of Britain. So we were looking a lot at images of Neolithic henges and the idea of creating something that has a real architectural discipline to it and that also speaks to a sense of time.
The Bone Temple went through a lot of iterations before we kind of landed on this particular design. Danny very much wanted to have it outside in nature. So we kind of were given a mandate to go hell for leather with the kind of scale. There's 1,000 uprights. All of the bones on the uprights are all individually cast. All of these skulls are as well. There's something like 5,500 skulls, 250,000 individual bones. So yeah, the Bone Temple from start to finish took 6 months to produce.
The work that's gone into creating it is really remarkable, especially when you're creating a world from scratch. This has come from someone's mind, and the kind of energy and creativity that has to go into that. It's been really inspiring.
It's a fantastic design by Gareth and Carson. I was very impressed by the depth of their detail and their imagination. That's what I loved about the first 28 days later, which the real thought had gone into, well, how are people surviving now without everything? And I think we did it on this. I really believe this. I feel this is someone's really thought through this world.
You have a responsibility if you return to this idea to try and produce ideas within it that are fresh and different and new and original. And I think the idea of Kelson's memorial to those who've been destroyed by the infection, it's a beautiful thing. I think some of it came out of COVID, and it's very moving.
There is something about this location that it feels as though it's been here for a really long time. When we saw it on the monitor, it was like, this is insane. Like, you really feel it in each frame. It's more than you could ever imagine it would be. The scene where Spike climbs the spire, it was just so emotionally intense.
First you think, this is so weird, and then you gradually begin to see that it's something actually very beautiful and very unusual in this kind of movie.
It's new life. The new day begins.
And in fact, you hand over 20 minutes of the film, when in this kind of movie, it's normally a trigger for carnage, and you hand it over to this rather beautiful memorial for those we have lost.
Love you, Mum.
And cut. That's the performance. It's beautiful. Absolutely glorious.
In this kind of movie, you're looking for those images that will terrify people. There's a visceral element to cinema where you have a responsibility to push the envelope as far as you can go, really. In this film, we used a number of different techniques and a lot of different cameras, and it felt like a simple way of trying to capture something out of reach of the conventional technology.
I think what Danny brings to this genre is definitely an element of reality.
It's a very magical opening to it, isn't it?
I also think he's incredibly innovative. Something that really struck me when I watched the first movie was the camera work and the relationship that the camera seemed to be having with the characters and the story.
The first film had been shot on domestic cameras, and it felt like, for an apocalypse, curiously appropriate that you don't have the big conventional cameras available. So on this film, we used many different kinds of cameras and lots of iPhones.
Danny had pretty early on the idea that it was to be shot radically, and he mentioned the idea of smartphones. Any film I do with him is a challenge. That's absolutely fine by me. So we started investigating how to make smartphones work in this kind of projects.
Anthony Dodmantle, who shot the first film, he's an incredibly important collaborator and who's worked with Danny a bunch of times and a fantastic artist. And I think that relationship between the director and the cameraman is one of the most important things in filmmaking, and the way they work together is fantastic.
He has the same energy as Danny. They're just like enthusiastic, buoyant energy, and I love that. And shooting on these iPhones have allowed for such a different atmosphere. It becomes a bit more intimate in a weird way. Like, I felt incredibly vulnerable at first, but I think it's allowed for us to capture something that's a bit more raw.
There was incredible benefits to shooting on a small gadget. It's lightweight, it's handy, it's something we all know, but this was a bigger challenge than normal because I had to work out a way of finding lenses that could sit on iPhones and bring that quality of cinematic imagery.
We are shooting on iPhone 15 Pros. We have a variety of lenses. Some of them really do have proper cinema lenses on it, and it's taken them weeks and weeks to develop it. So it's not quite as simple as just pick up an iPhone and shoot, but they just give you a bit more freedom and you can just stick them anywhere.
We used many different kinds of cameras. We have the amazing drone operator who we used as well, because some of the locations were so tricky to access that you could only get the actors in and a drone in. And we tried to be as lightweight and flexible as possible with them.
We've pretty much been involved in every scene. Normally we were dropping in and out of projects, we do days here and there, but there's just been a requirement for drone from the usual stuff, the high out stuff, but then really down, you know, skimming the grass, we're flying in and out in the woods, and you really come up with ideas that you'd never imagined you'd be attempting to do with a drone.
It's been really unique. And then there's also that they've built these new rigs where you've got this sort of matrix effect in all these action sequences, and they can move this thing that captures something from over here all the way over here, so you can kind of come swiftly move all the... Do you know what? They'll tell you, because it's really complex.
It's based on an older concept from films like The Matrix. They did something similar, but they did it in a very different way. Essentially, it's multiple cameras set up in an arc. They're all recording at the same time, and what they're going to do in post-production is they'll quickly cut between them, and you've got that freedom to move around and wrap the subject, really kind of feel the action in the scene.
It's a poor man's version of bullet time, really, which gives you the ability to create an almost 3D sensation of the impact of the arrows at various points. And another scene when Eric meets his end at the hands of Samson, that you use this kind of bullet time idea.
In a cinematic way, it's Danny and Anthony sort of breaking another boundary, and I think that's bold. I think that's bold filmmaking.
I've been fortunate enough to work with Danny for many, many years, and I've always embraced his ideas. To a certain extent, you could say on this film, we haven't taken ourselves to the easier places. Loads of issues that, sure, are restrictive or challenging. We had the same thing with 28 Days Later, and out of that kind of energy, I think something interesting exists.
28 Days Later connected with people around the world to an extraordinary degree. And so you have certain obligations to the fans, who are the reason you're here making another one, but you have a responsibility to make sure that you're contributing something new as well. And I want people to have an intense visual experience.
I was such a huge admirer of Danny's and a fan of the first movies, and I was so intrigued to see how it is that they're living and coping and managing to survive.
People love world building, as they call it. I don't think anybody wants to live through the apocalypse, but it's quite a nice idea to imagine that you might and how you would go about rebuilding after it.
It's really interesting. It's almost like a period movie, but set in contemporary day, because all of the manufacturing and the clothes just stopped. So you're looking at a different era of things that have been sourced and pulled and recycled.
Danny is an anarchic character that's foundational to his personality. He kind of recognised in us that we had that sense of anarchy as well. When we initially were pitching references and ideas, some of them were quite extreme, but we could see Danny's eyes light up.
And cut, beautiful one.
Danny had worked with Gareth and Carson prior to this, and I met them initially when we were talking about costume ideas and just seeing the kind of detail that they'd gone into. It's been amazing.
The costumes by Carson and Gareth, who are also the production designers, that was a really interesting journey actually, because I was very drawn to trying to find practical wear, and we stumbled on this fireman's jacket in our stunts rehearsal room. And what was good about it was from that period of time. Showed it to Danny and Carson and Gareth. We kind of liked the sort of silhouette of what it did over the top of a boiler suit. It seemed sort of odd and wrong, and then it felt like that's why it could be right.
It was surprising for me because I thought I'd be switching costumes and having loads of different ones, but this is my main costume for the full thing. What I really love is this talisman. I'm thinking of like backstories of how we got this. I think him and Isla went down to a beach together and she made him this. It's really nice. I love the jacket though. Jacket's amazing. Might get myself one of these.
With Isla's costume, we tried different things, and then eventually she looked post-war. She looked like she'd fallen out of time, and I think that was a really key thing we wanted to get right. The thing is with Jodie's character, she represents Holy Island, like the clues in the name.
A lot of the flowers on Isla's dress that she wears throughout the film are flowers that you can find on Holy Island. It's all those kind of details that have really helped bring it to life.
For Isla, it's about her journey to her death. And so we broke her down in the beginning. We make her look sweaty and rough, which is very hard to do. It's very hard to make Jodie Comer look rough.
We were initially going to do a wig, and then, you know, I kind of expressed to Flora that I wanted the freedom to like be tactile with my head, especially when, you know, Isla suffers from headaches. I think there's a lot of pain within this area, and usually when you have a wig, you just can't do that. I think when you're playing someone with an illness on this kind of journey, it's definitely important that the audience feels that that's truthful.
Action!
For Kelson, when we first see him in the green grass, we just wanted him to look startling and arresting.
Excuse my appearance. I paint myself in iodine. It's an excellent prophylactic.
He's essentially sort of red-orange figure. And we made the decision for me to shave my head against long hair. We thought that was a strong look, but his clothes are manky and sweaty and iodine stained, and he'd probably be pretty stinky.
We have done so many tests on iodine because there are so many factors. If you go too red, he suddenly starts looking like he's covered in blood. If you go too brown, it looks a bit too muddy. So we have tested and retested, and now he is tonally that of iodine.
I think it's that attention to detail that coming into this world, we never realised all of the things that are needed for the whole film. But it's been incredibly fulfilling.
Everything that they're wearing, it means so much to us. It means so much to the actor. It means so much to the story. Maybe audiences won't see the depth of that, but we know and they know. For example, I don't think anyone will ever know how much work has gone into, for example, the Jimmies. It's 7 characters. Each one of them is made of a patchwork of all these different tracksuits. Each one has gone through maybe like 30 people's hands to get there.
If I were to say what look I like the most, is the Jimmies. They are really, really iconic in the fact that I hadn't seen it before, which makes you excited.
Would you mind if we stepped in?
Gareth and Carson have come up with these awesome tracksuits that have been kind of sewn and patched together, all in kind of bright primary colours. And then Sir Jimmy is in an immaculate tracksuit covered in gold chains and a tiara.
Hold.
And they are nasty.
Hold.
And they're bringing something new to the screen that I think we haven't seen before.
Fucking go.
One of the things that's been such an incredible gift from this process has been to see all these incredible artisans doing their work in all the different departments. To see that come together, it was an absolute pleasure.
How's that?
There's that great line, nature finds a way.
Stay completely still.
Whatever it is, however ugly it might be, or repellent, it's in the process of change. The responsibility of returning to this is to try and show how the infected have evolved.
Go back to the trees.
There's a grand scheme of looks, and these are the designs of Flora Moody, who's an extraordinary makeup artist. Flora's created a world, a visual world, that feels real.
Action!
The first surprise for me when we all sat down at the table was when Danny said, well, they have to be naked. And of course they have to be naked because they're not dressing themselves. They have become wild animals.
The infection is an illness. It's a virus that people catch. They haven't died and come back to life. They're living people who've got sick. So that dictates some stuff. They need to drink, they need to eat. If they've survived 28 years, what would a human who is infected with this disease, what would they look like?
You've got your slow lows, very large on the floor eating worms. And then you've got the infected, who are your mainstream mass. And then you've got the berserkers, who are like these amazing alpha specimens.
This disease causes these erratic, unpredictable movements. My job is to teach the actors how to move and become an infected person.
There is a great continuity between the films because Toby Sedgwick played the priest in the first film who bursts out of the church door and attacks Killian.
28 days later, set a premise for the movement. These infected want the body that it's inhabited to charge forward, to kill.
Usually could rely on zombie movies that they'd all move very slowly. We didn't really want that. And so we got some athletes to play the infected. And I did a workshop with them. I put them all at one side of the room and I said, attack me as fast as you can and as violently as you can, but obviously don't hurt me. And so they did, and it was terrifying. So we got them to run very quick, and people love that idea.
It's honestly quite terrifying sometimes on set. I was quite taken aback because I felt like I'd spent a lot of time outdoors in beautiful locations, and then all of a sudden, like, the action came in. I mean, it's definitely exhilarating, it's thrilling, it's terrifying.
Chai, who plays our main berserker, is 6'8". Everything almost had to be oversized because you want his presence to be grossly intimidating and terrifying. So there are so many layers to him.
The makeup process can take up to 8 hours, which is grueling, starting at 2 o'clock in the morning. But then you have to remember, you're making a movie and you're making it with Danny Boyle and you're doing it in one of the biggest horror franchises there is. This is your dream.
It was a really long process of mud, blood, gore, poo, genitalia, pubic hair. We've all become very, very casual about chatting about prosthetic penises.
Suntan, so it's a sunburn effect. I am playing one of the infected. I've spent this morning getting all of my makeup done, starting with prosthetics, which is how we get this lovely infection wound going on.
I thought up this visual representation of the rage. So it starts at the heart and it spreads across the chest.
I'm just putting pus on the infected area, just where it's more red and swollen.
Is this what you thought you'd be doing today?
No. It's not.
That is the one thing for us in the hair and makeup department that ties together all the variants.
We've got 4 characters in there, the slow-lows. There's 4 or 5 prosthetic makeup artists working on each one. So there's probably about 20 makeup artists in there, beavering away since 3:30 this morning. This is Kat being made up at the moment. There's 25 pieces glued to her and the makeup artists are doing all the final touches now.
How you feeling?
Good. Can't wait.
Elba's playing the baby slow-low. You can see it's got all the same scars and wounds that we've got on our prosthetic makeup. It's a one-piece suit. This is Jason. He's not actually naked. This is all the coverage from the prosthetics. And the guys are just in the final touches.
Oh God, it's real cold out. But we're all looking really, really good.
Action!
The prosthetics on this movie have been exceptional.
Send it.
The performers are also incredibly patient. They spend hours upon hours in prosthetics. It is by no means an easy job, and they do it brilliantly to the point that it is pretty terrifying. They're running at breakneck speeds and distorting their bodies in ways. It's a whole other kind of performance and dedication.
Hello, I'm Danny Boyle. I wanted to talk to you about 28 Years Later. It's shot in a format 2:7:6, which is wide, and it's a peripheral vision thing. We're going to talk about why we chose that format and why we want you to see it in that format. But before any of that begins, there's this, which is small enough to fit in your pocket. And it's the only thing in this space that is small enough to fit in your pocket. It's the script. And it often gets forgotten, but it's actually the most important thing out of everything, really. Some people would argue casting is more important, but to me, I'm a traditionalist, and I think the script is more important. It's a wonderful script by Alex Garland. And he wants you, as a director, as you take over the script, he wants you to explore it, expand it, to investigate it, is the word he uses. And the beginning of that process is over here. And this is a selection of some of the storyboards that we use for making the film. And This is where you begin to expand. You get to actually describe some of the images you're imagining in Alex's script. The importance of another huge element in the making of a film like this, which is location work. So we drew up this image, which is described as the top of the hilltop, where a character called the Alpha arrives. And on location, we're able to shoot without any digital manipulation at all. It's a pure image that's available to us where we shot. We wanted the landscapes that we used to be as pristine as possible, because for 28 years, there's been very little human activity across the UK. So the fields are undisturbed, untended. And you'll see in this that in order to achieve that, we used drones to shoot so that there was no footprint at all. So the guy who's recording this on a Ronin is leaving a footprint. His feet leaves footprints. It's just inevitable. And crew tend to, it's always a problem filming on beaches or in snow. You know, the crew inevitably, and then you reveal where they've all been and you have to clean it up and everything like that. So we wanted very, very lightweight cameras so that we could do that. But we wanted this landscape, this 2.76 widescreen approach. And that creates a tension between quality and flexibility, really. You want the quality that gives you this extraordinary peripheral vision with the images beautiful to look at. You can select any section of it that you want to look at, but you want the flexibility that you can go anywhere quickly and be able to shoot like on virgin territory. On the original film, 28 Days Later, we'd used very simple domestic video cameras. They were everywhere at the time, and we thought, if there was an apocalypse, an instant apocalypse, they'd be literally lying in the streets. And if you were a survivor, you could pick them up and you could still see, what had been recorded. And it would probably be evidence of what had happened or something deeply moving, like the last images of someone, of their children. So we thought that's a wonderful format to use it on. It was very challenging because it was very poor quality back then, but it suited the grit, the griminess of that film that we were doing. And we thought on this film that we were going to try and use something that's become ubiquitous in all our lives, even more so than video cameras, domestic video cameras were back then, and that's the smartphone. Now, this table is a smorgasbord of how you adapt the use of small cameras in order to make a feature film. Because you have this enormous tension between the ambition of this widescreen format and a small device, highly flexible, very little footprint that you can move around very easily with. You need a great cinematographer in order to bring those two tensions together. The wonderful Anthony John Mantle is here as well. Come in, Anthony. You can talk us through some of these.
I had to kind of spread this out and work out how to guarantee you imaging that was good enough for the film and also reckless enough and unusual enough. And we ended up with a gadget like this that, even though it is very simple, my dear focus pullers can still control the image if they need to, and there's an anamorphic front lens on it, which gives a spectacular spread of imaging for the cinema. And that's the consumer system that we use. We had to switch off stabilizing, which meant I had to work out a way of holding this so it didn't wobble around and shake up and aggravate either Danny or the whole image as such. So we use gimbals of different kinds. This is the second version, which is called the it's still very light, it doesn't weigh a thing. Called the adapter version, which is a combination of the smartphone, an intermediate stage, which converts this sensor into an imaging sensor capable of receiving a PL lens. That means a mainstream lens, could be any lens, could be a lens as big as that or as small as this, anamorphic or spherical, with filters, with matte boxes, with stability, with focus control, with basically the control you need for some shots in a English summer in Newcastle or Northumbria, where the light tends to fluctuate 7 stops in 7 minutes, and that's what we have to deal with when we're shooting. So we're out in the wilds with these tools. They come with, eventually when we finished prep, we had capability, focus capability. We had telescopes that was one of the most recent additions to our package, which is basically, again, a smartphone upon which we place a telescope the size of a car. And that was just very difficult to use, but fun to use. We had droning. This is FPV drone. It's quite unnerving for a drone. They have to put this on, and then the picture appears here. and the thing's out there flying at 45 miles an hour straight towards a A-list actor's face. And you just have to live in trust. But I love that, and I wanted to use that a lot because as a very important part of our palette, it's not just like the drone, the god's POV. I wanted him to work within the actors as much as possible and become like a very dramatic character, as indeed we do every time we place a camera and we move the camera, leaning out, whatever.
So this is an array of 20 smartphones on one synchronized board, if you like, which allows you to photograph a scene inside it, like me inside it, and give you a real sense of 3D. It literally, you overhear the word immersive, but this is an example of it. It puts you right inside it, really, because it changes the simultaneous perspective at any point, if you like. And we are not allowed to show you that use on this video because YouTube won't broadcast it, apparently. None of this matters, of course, because what we want you to do is to go and see the film. And what's important is that your relationship with the actors and with the story. But we did want to show you how we try to create a landscape that's worthy of your attention. So I hope you enjoy the film, and I hope you can delve into some of this maybe afterwards.